So hi everybody, and welcome to the 18th edition of the Salt Lunchbox. We welcome you on Zoom and also Facebook Live. My name's Dave. I'm the founder of Salt Sport and Life Training. We're a not-for-profit health education organisation that typically delivers into clubs, education around wellbeing, mental health, leadership, culture. And right now we're building on all of the positives that we can during this time of isolation. The aim of this lunchbox is to inspire and connect. So from each session, there'll be 3 summary points and a call to action. But there's some terrific content today. You're going to want to take away a whole lot more than just the 3 summary points. We'd like you to get involved through the Q&A, through the chat at the bottom of your screen. Make it available for all attendees to read. And James, our moderator, will continue to answer and respond. And where possible, we will as well. As always, we'd like to really thank quite sincerely our sponsors, Bendigo Bank, Eastland and FC Business Solutions. You know, yesterday I conducted our very first club reconnect session, and I was really impressed that the people who shared on the Zoom rather than in person were very open, were very vulnerable. They were willing to share their experiences through this Zoom meeting platform. Maybe it's becoming quite normal for us now. And I remember one of the people using the word despair. She said, I have been through feelings of great despair. And while there was extremes of feelings, there'd been times when people had been really down and times when people had been going quite well. That word resonated with me, and the other people in the group were tremendously supportive toward her. But I was aware too of just how important it was for her to have some self-care during this time, for all of us to give ourselves a little bit more of that self-care. And so it was back, I think, on the 17th of April that we had Laurice come and speak to us. Laurice is the founder of the Ripple Effect Institute, among many other things that she does. And the feedback from that session was we would like to hear more about self-care. And Laurice has prepared some terrific takeaway resources for today. So welcome, Laurice, and we'd love to hear from you. And Laurice, just tell us, how have you been holding up during the past 8 weeks?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And it's great to be here once again. I think that's an interesting question. I think it's been probably a roller coaster ride in a while. I wouldn't necessarily put despair in there, but I think there's a range of words that I'd use in any one probably given day. Struggle has definitely been in there a bit, but I've also had some really positive emotions that have come in there. And I think this is the whole thing about self-care, is it's okay to struggle. It's okay. That's part of life and so forth. And despair will be a part of that. And acknowledging and not necessarily hiding any of that. So I think that's a great share that you've started us off with.
Great. I like James's quote down there. It's okay to fall apart sometimes. Tacos fall apart and we still love them.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
So with that, why don't we launch into the self-care? And the way I sort of look at it is this is an investment in yourself, and you know, this is like we would do any other investment. That's the way you need to look at it. And I think just to start us off, you know, when I'm saying self-care, this is a positive thing that we're doing for ourselves, and the positive is the really, really important part of that. So, you know, what I want us all to do right now is to really relax, sort of really be present. And by doing so, we're just going to sit here and do a couple deep breaths. I just want everybody to look at your screen, feel, you know, relaxed, and do some, just a couple of deep breaths to really ground us. And one more. And it's amazing of how just a couple of deep breaths each and every day can even start us off with the self-care, an investment. And that just really, to take that breath in and be guided by that breath. And so this really is enables us to bring us to this very present moment, and be grounded, like I said. So what I wanted to do first of all is just recap from our last session. Some of you would have been in here and some of you missed it. We really focused in on last time of sort of the why and the what of the self-care. So these were slides that we'd used last time, and you can download those. And the three takeaway points were: it is not selfish. This is about thinking about yourself, which is very essential. This is critical for our own physical, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being, right? And we said it's important to start with something small, simple, and tie into the tiny habits. Those were our takeaways. So for instance, just like what we did just now, those deep breaths are starting with just tying in something really, really simple. And I'll give you an example of that. One of the things that I do now, before I have my first cuppa in the morning, and I really enjoy my coffee, is I sit for 10 minutes and do meditation. So I haven't got my heart rate up yet with my coffee, but I know that I'm going to enjoy my coffee. But before I have that, I have a meditation. I put myself in a really relaxed place, and I use the Daily Calm app, and of course there's Smiling Mind and so forth, and that's the way I start off. And I've hooked it to that tiny habit to my coffee.
Yeah.
All right, so that's where we left off last time. I'm not going to go through what's underneath the physical, emotional, social, and spiritual, but I will come back to those in a little bit. Now, I do want to note too that, as Dave has already put, there is a link in the chat that you can download a self-care plan that we've put together, and I'll be talking to that a little bit. And it has those 4 headers as well. So just for my own information and to get us engaged is, let's do a poll from all of you guys. Now be kind with us. This is the first time we've done a poll and we've been working on the tech behind the scenes. Thank you very much for that, Pete. And what I'd like everybody to do is just answer these 2 questions. Do you currently practice self-care? And then how frequently? And it's okay if you say no, and it's okay if you whatever answer you have. And when I'm talking self-care, I'm talking, again, that positive things that we do to fill ourselves up, all right? And I'll just give a couple more seconds as people are answering that.
Laurice, they'll only be able to do it, those that are tuned into the webinar, not those on Facebook Live.
Yeah, sorry for that. Thank you, Dave. All right, so what we're going to do is, it's not moving around much anymore. We're going to stop that and we're going to share the results. And stop sharing. Oh, and the results. So what we see there is that 88% of you practice self-care, which is much higher than I would have expected. And that is absolutely fantastic. So again, that's a celebration moment for everybody that is online today. Now, and that's okay for those who don't practice self-care. That's exactly who we thought we might be able to attract in today. And how frequently? So the majority of people right now, about 50%, are doing daily self-care and weekly. So the majority, then 92%, are daily and weekly, which is a really good outcome there.
Can I ask, is weekly enough, Laurice? Or
that's what we'll get into a little bit more. I think where we'd really like to get to is to have it a habit of daily, right? Because what tends to happen, Dave, is you get into, if you let things slide out of your daily routine, they become ad hoc. They're not part of your daily routine, and that you might let it slide a week or 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you're not filling up your jar, and you've run out of energy. As opposed to if you do it every day, you're constantly refilling up that your energy, and that's really where we're trying to get to. So on this slide, where I want to start out is now addressing the how. So those people that have a self-care plan and are doing things on a daily basis, I would love, I don't have the chat open right now, but I would love to have you start putting in the different things that you do on a daily basis, and maybe share also, if you feel up to it, of what is it that you're doing that other people might be able to take away? Because one of the hard things is to say where to start. And I'll put myself in that category. It was very difficult for me to start. Now, so the first thing around that is I wanted to start with a question or comment that we had at the end of the last session, was around, I feel like I don't have enough time in the day as it is, and to provide back to my family. And I feel like any more time that I spend to myself is very selfish. This is one of the most common things that we hear. So, and of course, all of our circumstances are different. We may not have a family. Some of us are working from home. Some of us working, however, maybe looking after parents and so forth. But the whole thing is, all of us have things that we want to be doing in life, that we want to have energy to put towards. And if we don't have a self-care and putting that energy towards it, then we're going to run out, and we're actually not doing ourselves any service, nor those people like our family that you feel guilty about. Now, this is also around not feeling, this is not a selfish act, but again, when we, and as we already talked about, and we'll get to at the end, is to say, what activities am I doing? Now, if there's selfish activities that say, oh, I'm just going to ignore my family and I'm not going to do anything, this fills me up, I'm going to go out with my mates, in the pub, that's not self-care. Okay, that is, you're neglecting some things. And that's not filling you up by having alcohol and so forth. So we've got to be really careful of defining what that positive energy is.
We're getting some great feedback, Laurice. I know you can't see it, but I'll read a few of them out to you. We've got 10 minutes of headspace or smiling mind, weekly Zoom connections with close friends. John says, I like keeping it tiny philosophy. I make sure I use 3 a day and just practice really small things: drinking water, exercise, reading, listening to the SALT sessions. Thanks, Karen. Training for marathons, playing golf, running with the dogs. So, some really great responses coming in there.
Yeah, and I love some of those. And what that does by sharing it is help others go, that would be, I could do that, that I hadn't even thought about that. And I love the sips of water. That's one of the things I do now. I always have my water bottle here, and the dogs. And the really important part of all of that is that's what's personal to each one of those people. What fills one of us up does not fill up the other one, right? And I used to have a friend that you'd say, oh, you need to go for a run, Laurice, as your self-care. And I'm like, but I don't like running. There's nothing worse than doing running. There's another friend that says they love ironing. That is the last thing in the world that I like doing. It is not going to fill up my jar, right? So that's a really important aspect. So here, for building the plan, and you'll see if you've downloaded the plan, what we want you to do is fill out the things that fill up your jar. Now, one of the things that you may or may not want to do is be accountable. So you share with your friends or family member, or you can even write it in your journal. This is what I did today, and this is the way it made me feel. So by keeping accountable is allowing ourselves to say it aloud, and it actually starts to sound different than if you just keep it in your head, like anything else. Oh yeah, I walked to the letterbox. That took me 30 seconds. That may be okay, but that may not be quite enough in what you were looking for, because you actually had in your plan that you were going to walk to the park and walk the dogs, for instance. And then celebrate your investment in yourself. So 50 or really 90%, 92% of us online right now are doing some sort of self-care. It is really so important for each one of us to celebrate that investment in ourselves. And when I say that, it's as simple as saying to yourself, and this is really difficult, Dave. I'm glad you're sitting down on this one, and I want to watch your face. Sitting down or looking at yourself in the mirror and say, I value you. I love you. You've got this. Well done. And that is extremely difficult for a lot of people.
I would find that very, very difficult. Yeah.
and
yes, I get the essence of it, because there's a little voice in my head and often in the head of other people that says, gosh, you're a loser. That just reinforces what you always knew. Yeah.
Absolutely right. And there are certain days when you feel despair and you feel struggle, that is a really, really tough thing to do. But it's important you do the habit and you celebrate that. And that's what's reinforcing it. So again, adjusting when things aren't working for you is really important too. If all of a sudden you think, okay, well, I'm doing exercise, but actually this exercise, I'm going for a run and I'm not liking it. My hips are starting to give out on my knee. Stop that if it's not filling you up. That's really important. That's okay. And I've done that a lot of times. Now, I just want to share, I was putting together, after we had our last session, I decided I'd check in with some friends and see if they were doing self-care. So the first thing I asked them to do was to write down 10 things that they had in their self-care. And they were all of us were completely different, 10 things, right? And then each of us shared what those words were. And then I said, okay, right, the next step is let's now share on a daily basis. It was actually one of the friends that had said back to me, let's share that on a daily basis and keep ourselves accountable and on our messenger. Now, this was what was really interesting, what happened. Now, one friend dropped off immediately as she felt guilty for thinking of herself and could not handle the pressure of sharing 10 things that she would do to look after herself. All right, and I'll come back to that. One friend put down the 10 things, was comfortable enough to do that, but was not comfortable in trying to figure out a habit to put into place, and said, no, I've got this, I'll do things ad hoc, I'm too busy, I don't want to share, but I'm doing it. All right? Then the other two had put down the 10 things and have continuously shared on a daily basis, basically from our last session. Okay, so now we're say 2 to 3 weeks at least. So the important thing out of all those things is that first friend, what we realized was we needed to rally around that person now. She was not able to look at herself and put self-care into her basket. So we knew straight away we needed to help her more than any of us. And this is not trying to fix her. This is not trying to do anything but sit and be able to listen and know that she might have despair or struggle in her life. The second friend, we check in on a every couple of days basis and send positive emotions to help him. Now, the third sort of grouping was then that we continued to share, and when there were things that come up that say, I didn't do anything today, then that was our trigger to check in with each other and say, hang on a second, you didn't do any self-care. You normally do self-care every day. You said you would do these things. Are you okay? And typically the answer would be, no, I'm struggling today. So this is why the accountability piece in a very vulnerable but psychologically safe space that we want to get to.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
I'm finding that your emphasis today is different to what I would have imagined. At the beginning, I'm thinking that you're going to tell us, do this or do that, because these are really good self-care things, and you haven't. What you've actually said is it's going to be different for every one of you, so list your top 10. But actually, we have this duty of care to our friends to make sure that they are actually caring for themselves, because some people just won't do it. And in preparation for the mental health issues that we're facing right now, actually making sure that our friends are doing something each day for themselves is part of the love that we can extend to them. I think this is a very powerful message.
Yes, yeah. And remember, self-care, it helps prevent burnout, reduces negative psychological and physical effects. Stress helps you refocus on what's true and important. And this is why it's so important to invest in ourselves. But of course, we're not sitting there in isolation. And that's why that accountability piece, especially in this time period, is really important. And we can have each other help us out of sharing that and understanding what's I don't know what fills you up, Dave. We haven't had that conversation. And if I see that you're not doing that, that's sort of a trigger point.
Let me ask you a couple of questions, because we are getting towards the end and we haven't brought Lane in today. Lane's been waiting, but
I was just going to invite him in.
Well, you can come in, Lane, because you're there. I've got a question for Lane. So, but I want to ask you some things. I'm not sure whether they're self-care or not. So if I'm watching Netflix or I'm having a cup of coffee, or I'm doing things because I like doing them, but there's, looking at social media, there's an upside and a downside to it, isn't there? In fact, sometimes I will take a night out and watch some TV, but I get to the end of it, I think, gosh, what a waste of a night. Was that really, good for me? I don't know. So did some things fall into that category that, have an upside and a downside? What defines what is really proper and good self-care?
Yeah, and it comes back to, if it were me and I'd said I was on Netflix, my friends would immediately know something's not right. She is avoiding and procrastinating on something, and that's not filling me up. Now, if I said to you I was reading a book, then my friends would say, yeah, that would be definitely a self-care. So it comes back to your definition of what fills you up. And that's why it's so important to write it down ahead of time, not so yeah, there would be times that I too, Dave, I go, you know what, tonight I just need something to help me turn off. I'm gonna put Netflix on. But am I doing that to avoid something else and as a negative thing? That's where you've got to just adjust. If alcohol is definitely not a self-care. Netflix, gaming, can be in that same sort of, mentality. Yes, I'm going to just relax. But if I'm doing it to avoid and procrastinate, no. But it's a very, very personal journey on that. So I can't judge what you're doing and vice versa. We've got to really be mindful of that.
Welcome, Lane. And you've been patiently sitting there, and I like your Movember shirt. And
thanks, mate. Thank you.
Shout out to Movember after we had Zach on Monday.
Yeah, we had Zach on Monday, and wasn't he fantastic? Can I just say, if the amount of Netflix being watched is a sign of procrastination, I am the world's greatest procrastinator right now, Dave. And that's a big lesson for me. I need to get off Netflix, and I actually need to start reading some books, Laurice. I need to start reading some books.
I put Lane onto Money Heist because I told him he's the professor, and anyone who Money Heist.
And I'm enjoying it.
The online
I'm not sure everyone around me is enjoying it, but I'm enjoying it.
The online bookstore is loving me right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Can I just say, Laurice, to your point about what fills you up, I remember saying to my counsellor, not long after my brother passed away, I remember saying to my counsellor, she said to me, "So Lane, tell me what nurtures you, and what do you do to nurture yourself?" And boy, that was a hard question. And I said to her, "Well, what I do is I go down the gym." And she said, "What do you do at the gym?" And I said, "Well, I run and I punch and I skip and I work out and I work myself physically hard." And she said, "By my definition, that doesn't sound terribly nurturing." And I thought to myself, you know what? She's absolutely right. What I'm actually doing is hyping, not nurturing, and that my self-care strategy needs to have more gentle and more, not spiritual, but more empathic, gentle, caring, considerate responses for my mental health, for my physical health, and for my emotional health than going down the gym and punching a bag for 25 minutes.
And that's, you'll see why, you know, those 4 categories that we have put there, in not just having a list of 10 things that are all, you know, high intensity, because I have high intensity exercise on my list, but I also have to balance the nurturing. And I think that is an excellent point, Lane. You know, the meditation, the book, you know, the calming and the grounding comes with that as well.
Look, we have prided ourselves in the Salt Lunchbox on starting at 1 and finishing at 1:30 every single time. And I kind of like that, but I'm going to let us go to 1:32 today. If we're going to get there that long, because I do want to cover one other question. I'm liking that this is not just about doing things, it's about attitudes as well. And in your list earlier, Laurice, you listed forgiveness. And I want to just finish by asking both of you where this fits with self-care, the power of forgiveness and the difficulty of it for most of us. So let you both respond to that just quickly.
Yeah, what a great question. Sorry, Laurice, I jumped in there. Forgiveness is hard, Dave. I don't know about you, but I think you mentioned it before, where you said, you know, you look at yourself and think, what a loser. Every life has a whole series of missed opportunities, mistakes, stuff-ups, decisions made that have had really bad consequences. And we're really quick to forgive others for things that happen, that have an impact on us, but we hold those things that we do for an extraordinary long period of time, 20, 30, 40 years. And we look back and go, geez, I made a mistake back then in 1982. You know, what is that? You know, we're harsh narrators of our own story, when in fact what we need to do is recognize that these are the things that have shaped us, and we need to forgive ourselves for those mistakes and look at them as opportunities for learning, opportunities for development that have made us the people that we are. And I have a little saying, fail forward, fail fast. In other words, if you're going to make a mistake, make it quickly and then move on, learn from it with speed and move on, so that you take something with you that is going to be beneficial in the future. So for me, that's about forgiving myself quickly, forgiving myself for the thing that's happened, and finding new meaning and new purpose, and then moving quickly on and using that in a way that's actually beneficial.
Fantastic. Laurice, I'm going to ask you to do 2 things: to close your screen and answer the question at once. You can do it.
So the way I'm going to respond is, I hope that none of my friends are watching right now and putting in the chat of how horrible I get in self-kindness at times. It is tough.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Laurice, when we were talking earlier, you talked about the idea that treat yourself as you would treat your best friend.
That's right.
How would you respond to them? I'm going to just share my screen with you as we come to an end. On Friday, in 2 days' time, we have the absolute privilege, and I say that genuinely, of having Jason Smith come and share with us. Jason is the founder and CEO of Back in Motion, the health chain that is international. He's the author of many books, including Outside In, Upside Down Leadership. And Jason will be taking us through the idea that every one of us is a leader, and his mechanism of leadership is all about empowering others and creating peer accountability. Now, he speaks all around the world on leadership, and if you were to go and see him, you know, you'd probably pay a fair bit of money. So I would love for you to join us, and we're giving him as much time as possible to share what he has to say on Friday. So thank you to our partners, Bendigo Bank, FC, Eastland, as always. If you've missed any sessions, you know the drill. Go to our website, go to YouTube, and you can catch them up. Our Club Reconnect, it's also for workplaces, interactive, online. It's going to be an absolute winner. We're getting some fantastic discussion happening and talking about how do we come back into the sporting club or into the workplace and reconnect in a really powerful and new way, a reimagined way in the future. Number for Lifeline, we continue to put that just in case people might need their services. And we thank you very much. It's 1:31, so James, we almost got it done on time. We'd love you to join us next time. Thank you, Laurice. Thank you, Lane. Terrific session today, and great that there's a resource that you can get from Facebook. It'll be released there as well as from here or from our website. We'll make it available in lots of ways. A lovely activity for you to do in terms of working out how you need to deliver your own self-care and look after your friends. Thanks, everybody. Stay strong, stay positive, stay connected, and we'll see you on Friday. Bye for now.